Hello, everyone. I've always heard about the Amazon jungle, but I've never actually read about it, so I'm going to do that today. Every 15 or 20 likes, comments, I will be donating additional money to Wikipedia. The Amazon rainforest, also called the Amazon jungle, or Amazonia, is a moist, broadleaf tropical rainforest in the Amazon biome that covers most of the Amazon basin of South America. This basin encompasses 7 million kilometers squared, of which 6 million kilometers squared are covered by rainforest. This region includes territory belonging to 9 nations and 3,344 indigenous territories. The majority of the forest, 60%, is in Brazil, followed by Peru at 13%, Colombia 10%, and with minor amounts in Bolivia, Ecuador, French Guiana, Suriname, and Venezuela. 4 nations have Amazonas as the name of one of the first-level administrative regions. And France uses the name Guiana Amazonian Park for French Guiana's protected rainforest area. The Amazon represents over half of the total area of remaining rainforests on Earth and comprises the largest and most biodiverse tract of tropical rainforest in the whole world, with an estimated 390 billion individual trees in about 16,000 different species. More than 30 million people of 350 different ethnic groups live in the Amazon, which are subdivided into 9 different national political systems and 3,344 formally acknowledged indigenous territories. Indigenous peoples make up 9% of the total population, and 60 groups remain largely isolated. Large-scale deforestation is occurring in the forest, creating a harmful effect. Economic losses due to deforestation in Brazil could be approximately 7 times higher in comparison to the cost of all commodities produced through the deforestation. In 2023, the World Bank published a report proposing a non-deforestation-based economic program in the region. Deforestation hurts agriculture so severely that it can lead to agro-suicide. The name Amazon is said to arise from the war Francisco de Orellana fought with Tapayos and other tribes. The women of the tribe fought alongside the men, as their custom. Orellana derived the name Amazonas from Amazons of Greek mythology, described by Herodotus and Diodorus. Based on archaeological evidence from an excavation at Caverna de Pedra Penida, human inhabitants first settled in the Amazon region at least 11,200 years ago. Subsequent development led to late prehistoric settlements along the periphery of the forest by AD 1250, which induced alterations in the forest cover. For a long time, it was thought that the Amazon rainforest was never more than sparsely populated, as it was impossible to sustain a large population through agriculture, given the poor soil. Archaeologist Betty Meggers was a prominent proponent of this idea, as described in her book Amazonia, The Man and Culture in a Counterfeit Paradise. She claimed that a population density of 0.2 inhabitants per square kilometer is the maximum that can be sustained in the rainforest through hunting, with agriculture needed to host a larger population. However, recent anthropological findings have suggested that the region was actually densely populated. The Opano Valley sites in present-day eastern Ecuador predate all known complex Amazonian societies. Some 5 million people may have lived in the Amazon region in AD 1500, divided between dense coastal settlements such as the Marajo and inland dwellers. Based on projections of food production, one estimate suggests over 8 million people living in the Amazon in 1492. By 1900, the native indigenous population had fallen to 1 million, and by the end of the 1980s, it was less than 200,000. The first European to travel the length of the Amazon River was Francisco de Orellana. in 1542. The BBC's Unnatural Histories presents evidence that Orellana, rather than exaggerating his claims, as previously thought, was correct in his observations that a complex civilization was flourishing along the Amazon in the 1540s. The pre-Columbian agriculture in the Amazon basin was sufficiently advanced to support prosperous and populous societies. It is believed that the civilization was later devastated by the spread of disease from Europe, such as smallpox. This civilization was investigated by British explorer Percy Fawcett in the early 20th century. The results of his expeditions were inconclusive, and he disappeared mysteriously on his last trip. His name for the lost civilization was the City of Z. Since the 1970s, numerous geoglyphs have been discovered on the deforested land dating between AD 1 to 1250, furthering claims about pre-Columbian civilizations. Ondemar Diaz is accredited with first discovering the geoglyphs in 1977, and Alsu Ranzi is credited with furthering their discovery after flying over Acre. The BBC's Unnatural Histories presented evidence that the Amazon rainforest, rather than being a pristine wilderness, has been shaped by man for at least 11,000 years. Through practices such as forest gardening, terra preta is found over large areas of the Amazon rainforest and is now widely accepted as the product of indigenous soil management. The development of this fertile soil allowed agriculture and silviculture in the previously hostile environment, meaning that large portions of the Amazon rainforest are probably the result of centuries of human management, rather than naturally occurring as previously been supposed. In the region of the Xingu tribe, remains of these large settlements in the middle of the Amazon forest were found in 2003 by Michael Heckenberger and colleagues at the University of Florida. Among those were evidence of roads, bridges, large plazas. In the Amazonian and the Amazonas, there has been fighting and wars between neighboring tribes of the Javaro. Several tribes of the Javaran group, including the Shuar, practice headhunting for trophies and head shrinking. The accounts of missionaries to the area in the borderlands between Brazil and Venezuela have recounted constant infighting of the Yanomami tribes. More than a third of the Yanomami males, on average, died from warfare. Munduruku were a warlike tribe that expanded along the Tapajos River and its tributaries, and were feared by neighboring tribes. In the early 19th century, the Munduruku were pacified and subjected by the Brazilians. It was documented that large war parties of the Bororo, Coyopao, Munduruku, Guarani, and the Tupi people carried out long-distance raids. Most Borero groups were continually at war with their neighbors. In contrast, the Xingu have been described by the ethnographers as peaceful society, resorting to violence only in defense against their warlike neighbors. In the early 20th century, 30 indigenous tribes in the Amazon basin were listed as peaceful, and 83 were described as warlike. During the Amazon rubber boom, it estimated that disease brought by immigrants such as typhus and malaria killed 40,000 native Amazonians. In the 1950s, Brazilian explorer and defender of indigenous people, Candido Rondon, supported the Villas Boas Brothers campaign, which faced strong opposition from the government and the ranchers of Mato Grosso, and led to the establishment of the first Brazilian national park for indigenous people along the Xingu River in 1961. In 1961, British explorer Richard Mason was killed by an uncontacted Amazonian tribe known as the Panara. The Matsis made their first permanent contact with the outside world in 1969. Before that date, they were effectively at war with the Peruvian government. Geography. 9 countries share the Amazon basin, most of the rainforest. 58.4%, is contained within the borders of Brazil. The other 8 countries are Peru with 12.8, Bolivia with 7.7, Colombia with 7.1, Venezuela with 6.1, Guyana with 3.1, and Suriname with 2.5, French Guiana with 1.4%, and Ecuador with 1%. The rainforest likely formed during the Eocene era, about 56 to 33.9 million years ago. It appeared following a global reduction of tropical temperatures when the Atlantic had widened sufficiently to provide a warm, moist climate to the Amazon basin. The rainforest has been in existence for at least 55 years, and most of the region remained free of savanna-type biomes, at least until the current ice age, when the climate was drier and savanna more widespread. Following the Cretaceous-Paleogene era extinction event, the extinction of the dinosaurs and wetter climate may have allowed the tropical rainforest to spread out across the continent. From 66 to 34 million years ago, the rainforest extended as far as 45 degrees. Climate fluctuations during the last 34 million years have allowed the savanna regions to expand into the tropics. During the Oligocene, for example, the rainforest spanned a relatively narrow band. It expanded again during the Middle Miocene, then retracted to a mostly inland formation at the last glacial maximum. However, the rainforest still managed to thrive during these glacial periods, allowing for the survival and evolution of a broad diversity of species. During the mid-Eocene, it is believed the drainage basins of the Amazon was split along the middle of the continent by the Purus Arc. Water on the east side flowed toward the Atlantic, while to the west, water flowed toward the Pacific across the Amazon's basins. As the Andes Mountains rose, however, a large basin was created that enclosed a lake, now known as the Solomos Basin. Within the last 5 to 10 million years, this accumulated water broke through the Purus Arch, joining the easterly flow toward the Atlantic. There is evidence that there have been significant changes in the Amazon rainforest vegetation over the last 21,000 years through the glacial maximum and subsequent deglaciation. Analysis of sediment deposits of the Amazon basin, paleolakes, and Amazon's fan indicated that the rainfall in the basin during the last glacial maximum was lower than the present. And this was most certainly associated with the reduced tropical vegetation cover in the basin. In present day, the Amazon receives approximately 9 feet of rainfall annually. There is a debate, however, over how extensive the soil reduction was. Some scientists argue that the rainforest was reduced to small, isolated refugia, separated by open forest and grassland. Other scientists argue that the rainforest remained largely intact, but extended less far to the north and the south and the east than it is seen today. This debate has proved difficult to resolve because the practical limitations of working in the rainforest mean that data sampling is biased away from the center of the Amazon basin, and both explanations are reasonably well supported with the available data. Sahara dust wind blow to the Amazon. More than 56% of the dust fertilizing the Amazon rainforest comes from the Bedeli Depression in northern Chad. That's in Africa, by the way, in the Sahara Desert. The dust contains phosphorus, important for plant growth, and yearly Sahara dust replaces the equivalent amount of phosphorus washed away yearly in the Amazon soil from rains and floods. NASA's Calypso satellite has measured the amount of dust transported by wind from the Sahara Desert to the Amazon. An average of 182 million tons of dust are blown from out of the Sahara each year. Some dust falls into the Atlantic, but 15% of which falls over the Amazon basin. About 22 million tons of it is containing phosphorus. Calypso uses a laser rangefinder to scan the Earth's atmosphere for a vertical distribution of dust and other aerosols, and regularly tracks the Sahara Amazon dust plume. Calypso has measured variations in the dust amounts transported and an 86% drop between the highest amount of dust transported in 2007 and the lowest in 2011. It is possibly caused by rainfall variations in the Sahel, a strip of semi-arid land on the southern border of the Sahara. Amazon's phosphorus also comes as smoke due to biomass burning in Africa. That's really interesting. Wet tropical forests are the most species-rich biome, and tropical forests in Americas are consistently more species-rich than wet forests in Africa and Asia. As the largest tract of tropical rainforests in the Americas, the Amazonian rainforests have unparalleled biodiversity. One in 10 known species in the world lives in the Amazon rainforest. This constitutes the largest collection of plants and animals of species in the world. The region is home to about 2.5 million insect species, tens of thousands of plants, and some 2,000 birds and mammals. To date, at least 40,000 plant species, 2,200 fishes, 1,294 birds, 427 mammals, 428 amphibians, 378 reptiles have been scientifically classified in the region. 1 in 5 of all bird species are found in the Amazon rainforest, and 1 in 5 fish species live in the Amazon rivers and streams. Scientists have described 96,660 and 128,843 invertebrate species in Brazil alone. The biodiversity of plant species is highest on Earth, with one of the 2001 studies finding a quarter square kilometer area of the Ecuadorian rainforest supporting more than 1,100 tree species. A study in 1999 found 1 square kilometer of Amazon rainforest can contain about 90,000 tons of living plants. The average plant biomass is estimated at 356 plus or minus 47 tons per hectare. To date, an estimated 438 species of plants of economic and social interest have been registered in the region, with many remaining to be discovered or cataloged. The total number of tree species in the region is estimated at 16,000. The green leaf area of plants and trees in the rainforest varies by about 25% as a result of seasonal changes. Leaves expand during the dry season when the sunlight is at a maximum, then undergo abscission when the cloudy, wet season. These changes provide a balance of carbon between photosynthesis and respiration. Each hectare of the Amazon rainforest contains about 1 billion invertebrates. The number of species per hectare in the Amazon rainforest is presented by the following table. Birds, 160. Trees, 310. Epiphytes, 96. Don't even know what that is. Reptile, 22. Amphibians, 33. Fish, 44. Primates, 10. The rainforest contains several species that can pose a hazard. Among the largest predatory creatures are the black caiman, the jaguar, cougar, and the anaconda. In the river, electric eels can produce an electric shock that can stun or kill, while piranha are known to bite or injure humans. Various species of poison dart frog secrete lipophilic alkaloid toxins. They secrete lipophilic alkaloid toxins from their flesh. There are also numerous parasites and disease vectors. Vampire bats dwell throughout the jungle and can spread rabies virus. Malaria, yellow fever, and the dengue fever can also be contracted in the Amazon region. The biodiversity in the Amazon is becoming increasingly threatened, primarily by habitat loss from deforestation, as well as increased frequency of fires. Over 90% of the Amazon plant and vertebrate species may have been impacted to some degree by fires. Deforestation is the conversion of forested areas to non-forested areas. The main source of deforestation in the Amazon are human settlement and development of the land. In 2022, about 20% of the Amazon rainforest has already been deforested, and further 6% was highly degraded. Research suggests that upon reaching about 20 to 25%, the tipping point to flip it into a non-forest ecosystem, aka a degraded savanna, will be reached. This process of savannization would take decades to take full effect. Prior to the 1960s, access to the forest's interior was highly restricted, and the forest remained basically intact. Farms established during the 1960s were based on a crop cultivation and slash-and-burn method. However, the colonists were unable to manage their fields and the crops because of their loss of soil fertility and weed invasion. The soils in the Amazon are productive for the first time, for just a short period of time. So farmers are constantly moving to new areas and clearing more land. These farming practices led to deforestation, caused extensive damage in the environment. Deforestation is considerable, and areas cleared of forest are visible to the naked eye from outer space. In the 1970s, construction began on the Trans-Amazonian Highway. This highway represented a major threat to the Amazon rainforest. The highway still has not been completed, limiting the environmental damage. Between 1991 and 2000, the total area of forest lost in the Amazon rose from 415,000 to 587 kilometers squared. That is, 587,000 kilometers squared, with most of the lost forest becoming a pasture for cattle. 70% of the formerly forested land in the Amazon and 91% of the land deforested since 1970 has been used for livestock pasture. Currently, Brazil is the largest global producer of soybeans. New deforested since 1970 have been used for livestock pasture. Brazil is the largest global producer of soybeans. New research, however, conducted by the Vladimir Oliveira et al., has shown that more rainforest is logged in the Amazon rain than less precipitation reaches the area, so the slower the yield per hectare becomes. So, despite popular perception, there has been no economic advantage for Brazil from logging the forests and converting these trees into pastoral fields. Let me say that again. There is research indicating that the more of the rainforest goes away, the less precipitation is actually being collected, and the more water has to get used pumped in, and therefore is reducing the entire economic benefit. The needs of soy farmers have been used to justify the controversial transportation projects that are currently developing in the Amazon. The first two highways successfully opened up in the rainforest and led to increased settlement and deforestation. The mean annual deforestation rate from 2000 to 2005 was 18% higher than in previous 5 years. Although deforestation declined significantly in the Brazilian Amazon between 2004 and 2014, there has been an increase to the present day. Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, has supported the relaxation of regulations placed on agricultural land. He has used his time in office to allow for more deforestation and more exploitation of the Amazon's rich natural resources. Deforestation reached a 15-year high in 2021. Since the discovery of fossil fuel reservoirs in the Amazon rainforest, oil drilling activity has steadily increased, peaking in the western Amazon in the 1970s and ushering another drill boom in the 2000s. Oil companies have set up their operations by opening new roads through the forest, which often contribute to the deforestation of the region. 9.4% of the territory of the Amazon is now affected by oil fields. Mining is another driver of deforestation. About 17% of the area of the Amazon rainforest is affected by mining. Transition to solar and wind energy, digitalization, raised the demand for castrite, one of the main ore used for tin, manganese, and copper, which attracted many illegal miners to the Amazon. This led to deforestation, different environmental and social problems. Hydropower also created significant problems in the Amazon. Such activities are defined by the World Rainforest Movement as green extractivism. The European Union Mercosur Free Trade Agreement, which would form one of the largest free trade areas, has been denounced by the environmental activists and indigenous rights campaigners. The fear is that the deal could lead to more deforestation in the Amazon rainforest as it expands its market to the Brazilian beef. According to a November 2021 report by Brazil's INPE, based on satellite data, deforestation has increased 22% over 2020 and is at its highest level since 2006. There were 72,843 fires in Brazil in 2019, with more than half within the Amazon region. In August 2019, there were a record number of fires. Deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon rose more than 88% in June 2019, compared with the same month in 2018. The increased area of fire impacted the forest coincided with a relaxation of environmental regulations from the Brazilian government. Notably, before those regulations were put in place, in 2008, the fire-impacted area was larger compared to the regulation period of 2009 and 2018. These fires continued to move closer to the heart of the Amazon basin. Their impact on biodiversity will only increase in scale, as the cumulative fire impact area is correlated with the number of species impacted. In 2005, parts of the Amazon basin experienced the worst drought in 100 years, and there were indications that 2006 may have been a second successive year drought. A 2006 article in the UK newspaper The Independent reported the Woods Hole Research Centre results, showing that the forest in its present form could survive only 3 years of drought. Scientists at the Brazilian National Institute of Amazonian Research argued that in the article that this drought response, coupled with the effects of the deforestation on regional climate, are pushing the rainforest towards the tipping point, where it would be irreversible and start to die. It concluded that the forest is on the brink of being turned into the savanna or desert, with the catastrophic consequences of the world's climate. A study published in Nature Communications in October 2020 found that 40% of the Amazon rainforest is at risk of becoming a savanna-like ecosystem due to reduced rainfall. A study published in Nature Climate Change provided direct empirical evidence that more than 3/4 of the Amazon rainforest has been losing resilience since the early 2000s, risking dieback with profound implications of biodiversity, carbon storage, and climate change at a global scale. Research from 2025, using hundreds of climate models simulations, say that even passing 1.5 degrees Celsius of a global warming temporarily would trigger significant risks to the Amazon forest dieback. According to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, a combination of climate change and deforestation increases the drying effect of dead trees that fuel forest fires. In 2010, the Amazon experienced another severe drought, in some ways more extreme than the 2005 drought. The affected region was approximately 3 million kilometers squared of rainforest, compared with 1,900,000 kilometers squared in 2005. The 2010 drought had 3 epicenters where vegetation died off, whereas in 2005, the drought was focused on the western part. The findings were published in the journal Science. In a typical year, the Amazon absorbs 1.5 gigatons of carbon dioxide. During 2005, instead 5 gigatons were released. In 2010, 8 gigatons were released. Additional severe droughts occurred in 2010, 2015, and 2016. In 2019, Brazil's protections of Amazon rainforests were slashed, resulting in a severe loss of trees. In 2020, A 17% rise were noted from the Amazon wildfires, marking the worst start to the fire season in a decade. The first 10 days of August 2020 witnessed 10,136 fires. An analysis of government figures reflected 81% increase in fires in federal reserves. In comparison, with the same period in 2019. However, President Jair Bolsonaro turned down the existence of the fires, calling it a lie, despite the data produced by his own government. Satellites in September recorded 32,017 hotspots in the world's largest rainforest, and 61% rise from the same month in 2019. In addition, October saw a huge surge of a number of hotspots in the forest. 17,000 fires are burning in the Amazon rainforest, with more than double the amount detected in the same month last year. In 1989, environmentalist C.M. Peters and two colleagues stated that there is an economic as well as a biological incentive to protecting the rainforest. 1 hectare in the Peruvian Amazon has been calculated to have a value of $6,820 if the intact forest is sustainably harvested for fruit, latex, and timber. $1,000 if clear-cut for commercial timber, not sustainably harvested, or $148 if it's used for cattle pasture. As indigenous territories continue to be destroyed by deforestation and ecocide, indigenous peoples' rainforest communities continue to disappear, while others, like the Urarina, continue to struggle to fight for their cultural survival and the fate of the forested territories. Meanwhile, relationships between non-human primates in the subsistence and symbolism of indigenous low South American peoples has gained increased attention, as have ethnobiology and community-based conservation efforts. A 2021 study of Brazilian Amazon shows that the protection of freshwater biodiversity can be increased up to 600% through integrated freshwater terrestrial planning. From 2002 to 2006, the conserved land in the Amazon rainforest almost tripled and deforestation rates dropped to 60%. About 1 million kilometers squared have been put into some sort of conservation, which adds up to a current amount of 1,730,000. In April 2019, the Ecuadorian court stopped oil exploitation activities in 180 hectares of the Amazon rainforest. In July 2019, the Ecuadorian court forbade the government to sell territory with forests to oil companies. In September 2019, U.S. and Brazil agreed to promote private sector development in Amazon, as they pledged $100 million biodiversity conservation fund for the Amazon, led by private sector. Brazil's foreign minister stated that opening the rainforest to economic development was the only way to protect it. In 2022, the Supreme Court of Ecuador decided that under no circumstances can a project be carried out that generates excessive sacrifices to the collective rights of communities and nature. It also required that the government to respect the opinion of the indigenous peoples of Americas and different industrial projects on their land. Advocates of the decisions argue that it will have consequences far beyond Ecuador. In general, ecosystems are better shaped when the indigenous peoples own or manage the land. Due to the conservation policies of Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, in the first 10 months of 2023, deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon decreased by around 50% compared to the same period in 2022. This was despite a severe drought, one of the worst on record, that exacerbated the situation. Climate change, El Niño, deforestation increases the likelihood of drought conditions in the Amazon. According to the Amazon Conservation MAAP Forest Monitoring Program, the deforestation rate in the Amazon from January 1st to November 8th of 2023 decreased by about 56% in comparison to the same period in 2022. The main cause is the decline in deforestation rate in Brazil due to the government policies, while Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia also reduced deforestation. In January 2025, published data showed 50% decline in deforestation rate in the Amazon rainforest and 43% rise in vegetation loss in the neighbor Cerrado during the year of 2023 in comparison to 2022. Both biomes together lose 12,980 kilometers, 18% less than in 2022. The use of remotely sensed data is dramatically improving conservationists' knowledge of the Amazon basin, giving the objectivity and lowered cost of satellite-based land cover and change analysis. It appears likely that remote sensing technology will be an integral part of assessing the extent, location, and damage of deforestation in the basin. Furthermore, remote sensing is the best and perhaps the only way to study the Amazon on a large scale. The use of remote sensing for conservation of the Amazon is also being used by indigenous tribes of the basin to protect their tribal lands from commercial interests. Using handheld GPS devices and programs like Google Earth, members of the Trio tribe who live in the rainforests of southern Suriname map out the ancestral land to help strengthen their territory claims. Currently, most tribes in the Amazon do not have clearly defined boundaries, making it easier for commercial ventures to target their territories. To accurately map the Amazon's biomass and subsequent carbon-related emissions, the classification of tree growth stages within the different parts of the forest is crucial. In 2006, Tatia Kuplik organized the trees of Amazon into 4 categories: mature forest, regenerating forest between 3 and 5 years of regrowth, and regenerating forest of 11 to 18 years of continued development. The researcher used a combination of synthetic aperture radar and thematic mapper to accurately place and different portions of the Amazon into 4 categories. Experts consider a forest-friendly economy that is the best method to sustain Brazilian agriculture sector, because deforestation disrupts rainfall patterns and increases temperatures, hurting agriculture. This may lead to agro-suicide. Even irrigation cannot solve the problem. Because of irrigation, farmers need water, which is already in short supply. In 2023, the World Bank published a report named A Balancing Act for Brazil's Amazonian States, an economic memorandum. The report stated that economic loss due to deforestation in Brazil could reach around $317 billion per year, approximately 7 times higher in comparison to the cost of all commodities produced through deforestation. Proposed non-deforestation-based economic program in the region of the Amazon rainforest. Silvopasture, which is integrating trees, forage, and grazing, can help stop deforestation in the region. According to the WWF, ecotourism could help Amazon to reduce deforestation and climate change. Ecotourism is currently still little practice in the Amazon, partially due to the lack of information about places where implementation is possible. Ecotourism is a sector that can also be taken up by the indigenous community in the Amazon as a source of income and revenue. An ecotourism project in Brazilian section of the rainforest had undergone consideration by Brazil's State Secretary for Environmental and Sustainable Development in 2009 along the Apuranara River in the Arapiraca Sustainable Development Reserve. Also, some community-based ecotourism exists in the Mariuá Sustainable Development Reserve. Ecotourism is also practiced in the Peruvian section of the rainforest. A few eco-lodges are, for instance, present in Cusco and Madre de Dios. In May 2023, Brazil's Bank of Federation decided to implement a new sustainability standard demanding for meat packers to ensure that their meat is not coming from illegally deforested areas. Credits will not be given to those who do not meet this new standard. The decision came after the European Union decides to implement regulations to stop deforestation. Brazil's beef exports said that the standard is not just because it is applied to new landowners. 21 banks representing 81% of the credit market in Brazil agree to follow the rules. According to a statement of the Colombian government, deforestation rates in the Colombian Amazon fell by 70% in the first 9 months of 2023, compared to the same period in the previous year. What can be attributed to the conservation policies of the government. One of them is paying local residents for conserving the rainforest.